Hey guys, Haz here at Shield Canine. Today we are going to be starting our leash training module. The leash is the ultimate form of nonverbal communication. It is probably the oldest dog training tool known to man and probably the least understood in this day and age. A lot of people think of a leash as a band-aid solution to a poorly behaved dog. It's the way that you prevent your dog from leaving you. It's what you use to hold your dog back from doing things you don't want him or her to do. The leash is so much more than that, guys. It is the ultimate nonverbal communicator between you and your dog. It is a direct line between you and your dog. You can teach your dog so much with a leash, and you can correct your dog for undesirable behavior with the leash. You can even reward your dog with the leash if you know how to do so. So in this module, we're going to be focusing on giving you and your dog the basic skills to move forward to off-leash work with the leash first. So we're going to be focusing on sit, down, heel, place, and come. All these behaviors correctly mastered on the leash before we ever progress to off-leash training. Hey guys, so I'm here with Apollo and I'm going to be demonstrating the introduction to leash work. So as you recall, we started with the loose leash walking, okay? And the loose leash walking is of course the foundation to everything. But now it's time to begin to teach the dog other behavioral concepts like a sit, a down, an entry to heel, a place command. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a new dog here, Apollo. I haven't worked him before, so we don't really know each other all that well. He just got in yesterday. But I'm going to use him as an excellent example to show you what intro to a sit and to a down look like. Okay guys, so in the first lesson what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on teaching the dog the sit and the down. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, my dog already knows how to sit. There's knowing how to sit and there's knowing how to sit. Every behavior we teach, from the most simple to the most complex, we're always looking for failure points in the training, and we're setting up our training to prevent failure in the future. So what I mean by that is this. A lot of dogs will just sit for a piece of food and a little bit of a lure with the hand. But that's not enough. It might work in here, it might work in your backyard or in your kitchen. That is not going to work out in the real world, especially if your dog is interested in something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to be training the dogs with a combination of pressure from the leash and luring with the food to get the dog into positions. Now, a lot of people also are in a big hurry to teach the dog command words. Command words are not going to help you with a dog that doesn't know how to get to the correct position. And that's really important for people to understand. A lot of people are like, what commands are you using? The commands I'm using don't matter. Your dog doesn't even know how to get there. I could say hamburger and make hamburger mean sit, and I can say ooga booga and make that mean down. The dog doesn't understand English. So the command words that I'm using are completely unimportant. So in the beginning, what I want you to do is I want you guys to just get your dog moving around with the food. So I've got a piece of kibble here, okay? It's in my hand. I'm gonna make that kibble make contact with his nose. And when he's chasing it, just like this, good boy, I'm gonna let him have it. Okay? Remember the chip marker? That means that means I'm releasing the food to the dog. So again, food's in my hand. If I don't feed like this, okay? That's how you get your finger snipped. I either put the food like this with my thumb, between my thumb and my palm, or I let the dog know that the food's there and then I close my hand a little bit and then I let him chase my hand. And when my dog is following my hand for the food, that means that he's ready for me to lure him or bait him with the food into the position. So I'm going to do this before I start training, and I'm also actually going to take a break from training and start doing this in the middle of training as well, just to keep the dog focused on following my hands. If my dog can't follow my hands, it's going to be more difficult to get him into the various positions I need to get him into. If he's willing to follow my hands, I can get him into any position because wherever his head goes, his body follows. So let's talk about the sit, okay? So what I'm going to do, and remember the loose leash walking, guys, so here I'm going to be firm with him. If he tries to drag me right away, I'm just going to give him that pop. I'm going to move him around because he got distracted here. So that's the other thing too, guys. You'll notice that I don't ever stay still too long. I always move the dog, okay? So now what I'm going to do for the SIT, the sit, I'm going to get the dog's attention, so there's food in my hand, make contact with the dog, pull up and pull up. And you notice I haven't said a word yet. That's it. So what was he doing there? And the reason I didn't make a command, the reason I didn't say sit, I know he knows what a sit is. The reason why I didn't say to him to sit is because I don't know how he's going to take this pressure that I'm putting on him. And you can see he was doing the wrong thing a few times. What did I do? I just ignored him and I maintained the pressure. I didn't overpressure the dog so that he freaked out, but I maintained the pressure to a level where he became motivated to try and come up with a solution to the pressure. So again, contact, and I always say this, a lot of people are doing all this stuff with the food at a distance. Let the dog make contact, even feed the dog a few times. Okay, using our chip marker, remember that, okay? And now make contact, pull up. That's it. And remember, chip is a terminal marker, so it actually does mean that he can get up when he hears that. I'm not going to even worry about stays right now. I just need to make sure he understands how to get there. So a couple things. I'm going to do it from this angle so you guys can really watch my leash. You'll notice that when I make these sit, I pull up, okay, firmly, not too hard, not too soft, and then the second he does it, I throw the leash back at him. And that's really a big concept, guys. It really kind of helps you get in the mindset of releasing pressure, especially people that are new, right? I find that they tend to keep the pressure on past the moment that the dog has done the right thing. So when we're training with pressure, pressure is a really valuable tool, but if you misuse it, you're just going to cause confusion and stress for the dog that is needless. Now, you'll notice that I am using a dynamic reward. And by that I mean, when I mark for the correct behavior, the chip marker, I'm immediately moving away from the dog and letting him eat from my hand. I'm not feeding him in position. There's a time and a place for dynamic and static rewards. For this dog, he's a little bit slow right now. So I'm going to do more dynamic rewards to keep him a little bit happy, a little more excited, keep him moving a little bit faster. If he was really hyper, I do more static rewards where I would feed him in the position. We don't want to become robotic. Robotic people are boring, and if you're putting on pressure on a dog in a robotic, repetitious manner, your dog's going to become flat. So sometimes I'm going to make that pressure, and I'm going to vary it up, and I'm going to keep the dog a little bit dynamic. Not so dynamic that he kind of loses his mind, but not, you know, too little. And I'm just going to reward that because right there he was like, man, I'm going to actually try here. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to try, I'm just going to give you a freebie, right? So when I ask him to sit, I know you can make it without pressure. I bet you. Sit. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the problem is, here's the problem with not training with the pressure. At some point, he's not going to want my food. He's going to see something in the environment, and he's going to be like, you know what, that's more interesting than the food that you've got. So then I'm going to have to put pressure on him to make him sit. But if I haven't done it in the learning process, that's going to be super stressful for him. He's going to struggle and he's going to fall apart, okay? Versus he knows what the pressure is and how to turn him off. Remember, what I'm doing here is a combination of negative reinforcement to positive reinforcement, okay? It's really, I'm not punishing him. I can't punish him for something he doesn't know. So again, one more time, pressure, and feed. Now you'll notice I got out of the position again. It depends on the dog, guys. You know, this is the problem with dog training. There's no like firm rule. Sometimes it's a good idea to feed the dog in the position. So if I have a dog who's like super hyper and really crazy, I'd feed him more in the position because I want him to stabilize mentally. If I had a dog who was super slow and kind of closed in, a little bit like very depressed, very stressed, I'm going to step away from the dog and reward the dog. And here, since we get a lot of dogs in here that aren't our dogs, they don't have a relationship with us, the pressure and the new environment can stress them out. So we tend to do a lot of dynamic reward. Let's start with the down, because I think most people can muddle their way through a sit. I just kind of did this more to get you guys in the right mindset so you can understand how you need to be thinking when you're training this or really any other behavior. All right? So I'm going to start teaching him the down now. Now, if you've already taught your dog a down for food, great. If you haven't, well, you're going to do it like this. So we're going to make gentle downward pressure with the leash. And the second, you can see, he doesn't really want to go here. I got the food here. I got it right to his nose. Okay. Good. Now the reason why I rewarded him there is because you can see that he's not able to get there all the way. So I just want to reward incremental success. I'm going to go like this so you guys can see the leash. So there's the leash, right? Good. And the second he kind of puts his head down, puts his front half down a little bit, I'm immediately rewarding. I'm going to do this again, and I really want to watch my hand on the leash. Light pressure, luring. Oh, and we got it all the way. All right. And there again, I rewarded him in the position because he's kind of struggling. So again, pressure, lure, and again, pressure. The pressure is not heavy, guys. And you see again, I really throw that leash back at him when he does the right thing, okay? So in the beginning, you can see, I can't really stand up and make this happen. I gotta kind of get down to his level. I gotta work on what it is that I want him to do a little bit here. Okay? So, pressure to the position. Now here's the thing, guys, you've gotta be careful. If you pull too hard on the leash in the beginning and your dog has never felt downward pressure, which a lot of dogs haven't, right? Everybody pulls up on the leash. Very few people pull down. Your dog's going to have a little bit of a panic attack. And if you, let's say I pulled down on his leash and he went, ah, he started screaming and throwing himself all over the place. And I stopped pulling on the leash. What have I just taught him to do? Have I taught him to lie down? No, I've taught him when you feel downward pressure, freak out, throw a fit, act like you're dying, okay? We don't want that. So again, food in my hand, closing my hand, letting him make contact, pressure, release, good boy. You will notice that I don't do this. This is what a lot of people do. They put the dog in a sit, and then they kind of do this thing. You see how he had to move his legs 3 times to lie down? I don't like that. And I don't ever teach my dog to sit before they lie down. What I do is I get the dog standing, and then I push back and down, right between their front legs. Right? Back and down. And look at that. That's it. Right? Dogs naturally bend that way. They bend back and down. Right? So, back and down. I'm just going to lure him again. And if he steps back, I'm just going to keep moving my hand. Good. And it's the pyramid down. Right? The dog just kind of rocks back into the down like, if you guys ever watched anything on like ancient Egypt, the statue of the Sphinx, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for him to look like the Sphinx in the down. Okay, so again, straight. See how it's not ugly? It's one smooth, continuous motion. Just like that. Good boy. All right, so in the beginning, I'm going to spend a few days just teaching my dog how to get to positions. Once he shows me he's comfortable getting to positions, I'm going to add commands. Down. Right? I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to do static and dynamic rewards. I'm going to look at my dog and judge what kind of dog is he. Is he the type of dog that needs to move a little more? Then I'm going to do more dynamic rewards. Is he kind of slow and nervous and a little bit, you know, scared? I'm going to do a little more dynamic rewards. Is he fast and really a little bit too hyper? I'm going to do more static rewards, okay? I'm not going to worry about a stay. I'm just going to worry about the dog getting to the position. And sometimes, remember the food chasing game that we talked about? We're just going to go back to that. And we're going to reward the dog for chasing food. Okay? So, first couple of days, all I'm doing, just a combination of pressure, lure, reward. Okay, together. Pressure, lure, reward. Then we're adding the command. Down. And then sit. And we'll talk about the progression from that afterwards. So I want you guys to spend a week just teaching your dog to master getting to the position, teaching them the word. Okay, now one more thing on the word, because I know I'm kind of jumping all over. When you say the command, don't move right away. So don't go sit, right? Because your dog is not going to hear sit if you do that. If you're speaking verbally and non-verbally, your dog cues on the non-verbal and ignores the verbal. If you want the verbal to mean something, remember, classical conditioning, right? We want the dog to actually classically condition the sound sit with the act of sitting, or the sound down with the act of sitting. So what we're going to do is we're going to give the command sit, and a fraction of a second later, we are going to move the dog into the position. Down. Very good. And again, down. So you guys get the idea, right? It's not so easy to catch the timing. So once you start to introduce the word, think to yourself, sit, one, and then move. So say in your head, the command, sit, and then one, the number, and then move. That one is going to give you that second to half a second of lag between sit, moving. Okay? So I'm going to do it with a down here. Down, one, and then I'm going to move. Okay? All right, so you guys get it. I'm going to do it on the other side again so you guys can watch my leash. Down. And I actually almost started to move that time before I finished saying the word. So we're going to do it again. Down, one. Boy. All right, guys. So command, wait half a second to a second, then move. Sit. You'll also notice that what I don't do, I'm kind of standing more still than I normally stand. Usually when I'm training, I'm walking around between reps. I don't just keep the dog in the same spot. I really like to move the dog around as I train, okay? For those of you wondering, why do I teach sit and down together? I don't really ever work on one specific command in a session. I don't work on 5 commands, but I'm usually working on 2 to 3 depending on the level of the dog's ability. So usually in the beginning when I'm teaching positions, I work sit and down together, usually especially because most dogs in excess of 6 months have some concept as to what those 2 things are. So I can work them together. And it stops the dog from kind of getting locked into robotic stuff, right? Robotic training for me is the enemy of a happy dog, right? It's not pressure that's the problem, it's robotic application of pressure. Even if it's fair, it's just robotic, like a metronome, over and over again. It's boring, right? Stay a little bit interesting. Keep yourself, whether it's a static reward, a dynamic reward, maybe a little bit of food, like a little bit of praise with the reward. Don't be robotic. Robotic people are boring. And bored dogs are flat-looking dogs. If you want your dog to look happy, if you want your dog to be engaged with you, engage with the dog. Yeah, yes, yes. There you go, right? Create a little bit of dynamism in the dog, all right? So again, one more time. Sit. So, I hope this helps you guys. Like I said before, if you find that your dog isn't motivated to work for food, you're probably feeding your dog too much. So, like we talked about at the beginning of this training, a little bit of food drive goes a long way to making the learning process easier. It's not that you can't train the dog without food. Absolutely you can. And we are going to do a video on no food drive dogs. But usually I find no food drive dogs are fed too much. They're fed from a bowl. People aren't really making them work very hard for their food, and that's why they really aren't exhibiting much in the way of interest in the food. So my suggestion is, if you want your dog to be at the optimal level of happiness and comfort and lowest level of stress in the learning process, which for me is very desirable, I'm going to really work on making sure my dog wants to eat. I'm not going to feed him from his bowl. This dog has been eating kibble the entire time, right? And as you can see, he's fairly motivated to do it. So I want the same thing from you guys, just building that food drive by not feeding from the bowl, instead taking the daily portion that the dog needs to eat, putting it in a bowl so that you know what it is, but not feeding it to your dog. You just put it in your pockets of your vest or your pouch or whatever, and now you have your dog's daily food allotment, but you're using it throughout the day for training. So he learns to train to eat, basically. If your dog tries to pull you away, you're always going to go back to that loose leash walking that we worked on, where the dog is being respectful of the leash and not dragging you on the leash, okay? That's really important. If your dog's trying to drag you away, he can't learn. So this is sit and down. This is the introduction to sit and down, guys, with Apollo here. And I hope this helps you. So you guys are going to start this stuff with your dogs, and we'll check back in soon.